Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another in the series, Curating Culture. I am Georgette McGlashan Miller, Research Fellow at the African Caribbean Institute of Jamaica, Jamaica Memory Bank. And today with us, we have our first return guest, Mrs. Monique Barnett Davidson from the National Gallery of Jamaica. Please help me to welcome Monique. She's making history.
What?
Right?
Yes, ma'am. Thank
Today,
you for having me.
yes. Today is very special because not very often we get a returnee. They want to wait until they have a new show, but here it is, Mrs. Davidson have a new show. And currently at the gallery, there is an exhibition titled One Nation, New Symbols. This was launched approximately 2 weeks ago, September 28th, and it will run until March 29th, 2026. So let me get into Mrs. Davidson's bio and we get straight into the discussion of this new exhibition that you and your family are going to run out to take a look at. Monique Barnett Davidson strives to connect diverse audiences to visual culture, drawing energy from curating, archival research, and the evolving dialogue between art history and community engagement. She has worked in various aspects of the visual arts sector in Jamaica, including art education, exhibition programming and development, and museum education. Currently the senior curator at the National Gallery of Jamaica, she has contributed to the lead exhibition projects since 2010, including the NGJ's pioneering Jamaican Child Art Exhibition series titled Art It, 2011 and 2013, Daylight Come, Picturing Dunkley's Jamaica 2018, and The Faces of Us 2023. She also presents and writes on various topics concerning Jamaican art movements, publications including NGJ's blog articles and curatorial essays. Artist entries for the book A to Z of Caribbean Art 2019 and the essay Remembering an Art Exhibit. The Face of Us 1963 to 64 featured in the book Archiving Caribbean Identity Records, Community and Memory 2022. Today we are going to discuss 6 pieces from how many?
Over 50 works of art.
Over 50 works of art. Free for you to come with your family and pay to see, right? And just for us to support our Jamaican artists, I'm excited about this exhibition. I was at the launch. I saw it about 2 times, and I'm going to look at it again because I love the way that it reframed the Out of Many One people. But this is your show, so let's get into it.
So, I'm glad that you made the reference to the Out of Many One people because that was one of the inspiring factors to conceptualizing the exhibition. When we thought about what to do next for the open call, the last one we had was Face of Us in 2023. And so we wanted to know what kind of conversation could we utilize the open call to tap into for 2025. And of course, Jamaica has always been in a period of flux, whether socially, economically, there's always something happening. And we, as we were kind of scanning these various discourses, the situation with Trinidad and Tobago came to our attention in terms of when they had done what we considered a very bold decolonizing move when they changed a part of their coat of arms in February earlier this year. And we thought to ourselves, well, all of the Caribbean territories have been going through their various changes. But that act by the TNT government, we thought was almost revolutionary. And we started to imagine, well, what if Jamaica did something like that? And from that questioning, we started to think of the idea of new symbols. Then we wanted to contextualize, well, how do we contextualize a conversation about new symbols? And one of the things that we looked towards was the motto, Out of Many One People. And we started to play around with the idea of the one nation, even though Jamaica is a country of a diversity of backgrounds and ethnic beliefs and ideologies and all of that. but we are striving to be identified as one people. And that unity is critical to even our sense of independence. And so that's how the title kind of came out, One Nation, New Symbols. And we thought that it would be interesting to see how artists would respond to that as citizens of the country, not just people making pictures and just expressing themselves creatively, but how would they utilize their creative skill, their skill of material, their skill of ideations to respond to something like that as citizens of the country.
And what I like about it is that I feel that it calls on a younger generation.
Yeah, it does.
Many times we think about art in terms of older persons or established, probably not older, but established artists.
Yeah.
But this is a conversation that brings in youth, and therefore it gives life to longevity. And after all, Jamaica is going to belong to the youth at any case.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, one of the phrases that we repeat in a lot of our engagements about this exhibition is that shouldn't our symbols evolve in the same way we do too?
Yes.
When Jamaica became independent and you consider the creatives that were behind the creation of the flag and the creation of the coat of arms and the identification of the national fruit and tree and flower and how all those the image of all these emblems, the faces of our heroes and heroines, how the images of these emblems have become now a part of our visual language. We thought to ourselves, well, what if, the current generation of artists, what if they have other ideas of how to engage with those same things? And what if they are looking even beyond the national emblems and looking into cultural life itself? There was somebody who shared a joke with me that if he had a piece in the exhibition, he would do it on mosquitoes because he's from Portmore. So, because that has become a major cultural reality for him. And anybody who lives in those communities in Jamaica will immediately identify with it. And that's one of the things that we wanted to. We felt that not only did we want the artists to speak, but we wanted to find a very direct way for artists to immediately engage with audience. A lot of the times people tend to be intimidated about artwork because they feel that, I don't understand this and I don't have the skills to interpret this. But if we consider work that actively uses images that the general populace is used to, then that definitely could provide a way for persons to access this other aspect of Jamaican cultural expression, which is visual arts. And just to be sure, just to be clear, we don't have any mosquito works in the show. There is something with wings, but it's not a mosquito.
It's not a mosquito.
So, just to be clear.
Right. And I think art is the perfect, or do I want to say the safest place to start this conversation than to go and write up something and, go and speak. The art leaves room for personal interpretation.
Yeah.
And we're not knocking foundational symbols or foundational work, but what we want to highlight is the evolution. And also, we want current Jamaicans to, as you say, identify and not feel alienated from the symbols.
Yes.
Because I think somebody like Marcus Garvey, our biggest, most popular national hero locally and overseas. And not just saying international, I mean overseas. And many Jamaicans don't know very much about Marcus Garvey and the works that he did, more than that he's a national hero. And there was a Black Star Line.
But if nothing else, they are familiar with his face.
Right.
Because his face is everywhere. It's on our currency, it's on books.
Right.
It's on the juice cart, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
And it speaks to the power of the image, where even if it is that, persons such as us who we read and study and do these things professionally. But oftentimes for most people, their
national hero
is Garvey, and broader than that, their first entry into information is with an image.
Yes.
It's with an image. Sometimes it's words, but the image, the human beings are hardwired to recognize and interpret images, even if they might be illiterate. So,
And before we start to discuss them, I just want to say it's a perfect time to highlight that in our information age, where people's attention span I mean, it's alleged, I have no proof, has been shortened, but an image will speak volumes.
An image will speak volumes.
Yes. So we are going to project some images on the screen from the exhibition, and then Miss Davidson is going to tell us about them, and we have a discussion. Which one do we have up first? So the first one we have is by
Malcolm Lindsay.
Malcolm Lindsay, and this one is called Beyond Grey. Am I to say that it is oil and canvas?
Yes,
Not
it
that
is.
I understand. Should I let you say it's oil and canvas?
So it is, so yes, you are correct. It is oil and canvas. It's oil paint on canvas. It's a large painting. And essentially it is a painting. So this artist, Malcolm Lindsay, he is a Jamaican artist. I also want to mention too that he's also a police officer.
Wow.
Who paints alongside his work. So, you know, big ups to the JCF.
Big up.
For you know, encouraging and facilitating him. But a work like this, at least in terms of my understanding from what Malcolm wrote in his artist statement, he has been very fascinated with themes of colonization, and not just colonized, but post-coloniality. And I know in academic we're always making up all these words, but Beyond Grey is one of many statements that Malcolm has made about the relationship between the Black. You know, you spoke earlier, off air, we're speaking about the fact that Jamaica is a majority Black population. But for Malcolm, he seems to be focused, in this painting at least, on the fact that despite the fact that the persons of African descent are the majority population here, the framework within which we identify ourselves is still one that is based or very much rooted in that Western European history. The way our parliament is, the way we see beauty standards, the way our society is organized. A lot of these things are in fact legacies of our European colonial past, which is not that far away. This was just up to 1960, you know, up to 1962. And so for him, based off my understanding of his artist statement, even though persons of African descent dominate the population of people here, but the ideologies for him are still very rooted Western. And so the figure that you're looking at of the Black man that is in front of this group of white men, I draw attention to the way that he has kind of posed. It's a very defiant and confrontational pose. And it can be interpreted that, you know, this figure represents those majority, you know, that Black majority that I just mentioned, who have to assert themselves despite, you know, the overarching white ideology. Some people want to use terms like white imperialism that's implicit within Jamaican organization and culture. But here it is that you have this lone figure that, despite the fact that you have all these, you know, these very classic looking white gentlemen around him in the frame, but he has disrupted the frame. And he has presented himself. He's very dark skinned. He has locks.
Yes.
Even in terms of the body shape, you know, it's not the ideal in terms of beauty. And he has taken position in front of that painting and forcing you to look at him, not them. So.
I am laughing and I'm smiling because my mind is going all over the place. Just learning that the artist is a police. And I hope I don't get in trouble. So not to the boys in blue, but to the men in blue.
Amen.
And we noticed that this overarching colonial force is also in blue. When I first saw the painting, my husband is a beekeeper. So I saw the bee and I thought, oh, colony, colonizers, you know, and always under the gaze of, you know, the European gaze, as you say, the Western gaze, to oversee. It's almost like it's helicoptering over his movements. And the defiance is there. But when I saw the picture of the bee slightly into, I was like, what is a bee doing here? And that's why I was calling the artwork colony.
And on closer inspection of the work, you will notice that it's not just one bee, it's about 3 of them.
Exactly.
So it's a small swarm of bees that are in there. And again, that's a literal interpretation to the whole idea of colony.
Right.
We refer to our colonial past. We talk about the British colonialists or the Spanish colonialists.
And if we know anything about bee, the little that I know about bee, there are 3 different kind of bees in the colony. There's a queen, there's a worker bee, and there's a drone. So of course the drones protect the queen, and the workers are all females. But in this frame here now, you see this image standing at the front, position himself, looking resistant, but he's not protecting or guarding anything. So when you say that you overturn all the ideologies, it is a beautiful work. I think I could say it's my favorite, but then there are so many.
There are too many.
And I'm aging myself because the rest of them talk about, aspects of Jamaica that really have become our symbol. So Jamaicans, and I don't want to stereotype anybody, but our identity is a big issue because even though we're a majority Black, status and class still has a big say in today's Jamaica.
Status and class as abstract ideas, but also your physical identity.
Exactly.
As I said, the central figure there, when we look at a lot of representations of the male figure, oftentimes you don't necessarily see a fat, hulking guy, unless the artist is trying to make a specific statement about that body type. But I find it interesting that it's not a model looking Black man that's here. This is, we would probably say this is a regular Black man.
That's what I'm saying. It's a regular Jamaican.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the body also becomes a symbol too.
And you commented on the hair already about the locks, which in itself is
another
anti-systemic.
Yes.
He could have not have locks and still be a Black man.
Exactly.
But just highlighting again how Rastafari has been the first and still is probably one of the most consistent advocates for Africa in Jamaica.
Exactly.
And that juxtaposes the colony more than anything else.
It does.
Hear me still say the colony.
Yes, ma'am. That means you're getting it.
Yes. Can we go on to our next artwork, Mr. Pasley? No, I love this one. Lord of mercy. Coming from a music background, my brother is a selector, he'd be proud.
Yes,
tell us about the great ladder.
Why, boy. So this work is by David Sykes. David Sykes is a graphic designer and illustrator. And this is one of 2 works that he has in the show. So the name of the work is actually Lada D. But a lot of persons call it Lord of Mercy because, again, we're talking about symbols that Jamaicans would easily understand. I mean, I've lost count the amount of people who have seen this work and go, Lord of Mercy.
Yes.
I mean, the amount, but it really speaks to the things that we know and how artists can utilize these various aspects of our language and culture and music to really reach out to people. Now, a part of one aspect of David's artist statement that I found particularly fascinating. Shout out to, by the way, big up to all the artists that are going to be mentioned here. It's not everybody, but I no favoritism here as in terms of what was selected. It's just for the purpose of this program. But one of the things that David Sykes highlighted in his artist statement is the Lada as kind of like a forgotten memory. For those of us who grew up in the 90s, we were very familiar with the Lada motor car, which is a Russian from
the Soviet Union.
Exactly. Yeah. And for those of us who know a little bit about what Jamaica's
political climate
was during, for example, the Cold War and such and such. And there was an interpretation of this historical period that David had where he thought about Jamaica importing ladders and buying more actively from Russia as kind of I don't want to, the word that I'm thinking of is not fit for airplay. I'm trying to come up with a different word. But essentially it's, and please help me out here. When you're trying to show somebody that, look here, I don't really need you. I can survive on my own. And he felt that, and he wrote that a part of his identification of the ladder was in relationship to our relationship with the US. who would have been our closest neighbor as a big
Right.
country, one, but also is in conflict with Russia. But here's it that this little country is importing this Russian car
Right.
and popularizing it within our culture. And he spoke about that. He used that interpretation to say, but you know, there was a time when we did in fact stand up to the US
Yes.
in choosing to import this vehicle
Right.
and not
and
a
not the
counterpart that
American
they would
needs.
have.
So
Right.
at that time, you would see U.S. as the neo-colonials, you know, trying to flex their muscles on us. But Michael Manley, under his government, as a matter of fact, the car was thought of as a
Communist car, yeah.
a communist car, and that Manley was saying that yes, we are siding with Cuba and Soviet Union, but what the car also did was provide some kind of mobility for the working class.
Yes.
Right.
A lot of persons who wouldn't have been able to, they were very affordable or they were competitively priced.
They were strong.
They were
strong as
str-
hell.
they lasted a long time. I had an uncle that had a Lada and he had that vehicle for years. It would not,
It's
it
like
wouldn't
a
die.
car.
It's a strong, strong car.
So one of the comments that Sykes I saw in the write-up was a comparison between the Lada and Nanny
Yeah.
to highlight the resilience, the strength, and also the resistance.
Yeah.
So both anti-systemic, both being resilient and fighting a kind of war of attrition, I think was
Yeah.
what the paper said.
Right.
But the Lada bring back memories, and even for the ones that aren't operating, the shell is still alive.
Yes.
Still
yes.
alive.
Yes.
So this was another good piece. And that is what I talk about, you know, the things that really hit at the heart that people can identify with. And the thing with this exhibition is that these symbols aren't being handed down to you.
No.
People are identifying
Define
their own
ones.
symbols. So we could make a space for the mosquito.
Definitely.
I
Definitely.
tell you. All right, this one here now, Hold the Line by Kobe Bailey.
Yes.
That's right.
Hold the Line by Kobe Bailey.
Kojo's legacy.
Yes. So Kobe, again, very interesting artist, one of several fiber and textile-based artists in the
Yes.
show. It's one of the things that I have really loved about the show. There are quite a few artists that are working in fiber
Yeah.
and doing amazing things with fiber. So it's not just painting and drawing and computer
Right.
work. There are a variety of materials that they could work with. Kobe Bailey, in her practice, generally uses a lot of found objects. So even in terms of the type of fibers that she has in this, if you notice at the top, this would be what, top left-hand corner and also the bottom right-hand corner. For persons who have had the opportunity to see the work up close or will come and see the work up close at the National Gallery, there are a number of fibers in there that, you know, you can identify. But one of this work is a part of a series of works that Kobe did looking at maroon heritage and not so much maroon heritage, but I think it would be better to say indigenous heritage.
Okay.
So the series that she had produced, which was featured in her final year exhibition in June of this year, looked at the Taino as an indigenous group and also looked at maroon as well. And with Hold the Line, this is one of the pieces that goes into one of the major characters coming out of Jamaican maroon history, and that is Kojo. There is a feeling that his legacy sometimes is overshadowed by
the great Nanny.
Exactly. You know, when we talk about maroon, we think Nanny in terms of popular thought.
And it goes back to
But
the
for
same thing you're
those-
saying about the faces and the money and the images. There's no image of Kojo.
There's no image of Kojo. The image of Nanny should be a show in and of itself. But in terms of these individuals, people like Taki, for instance, we oftentimes don't have images for them. And so their stories and their narratives, if they're not passed on in a particular way, they are sometimes forgotten or they don't enter into mainstream or popular culture. So Kobe Bailey's Hold the Line is one attempt that she has made to try and bring his legacy into visuality. Something that you can hold on to. We don't know exactly what the man looked like. However, there's a way that a figure of him can be presented based off what we know about him, based on the fact that he was a leader, based on which group of Maroons he was associated with their compound maroons. You know, there are different things that we know about him that can be utilized to create a visual understanding of him. So, you know, we have the figure that is there. The face is kind of broken up. So again, she's not trying to say this is what the man looks like. She's presenting an archetype for the viewer to hold on to. But then this face is also juxtaposed within, if you notice, there's a kind of like foliage in the background.
Yeah.
It's like leaves or like looking through leaves. And then you have the fibers that are in the top left and bottom right. One of the things that we always hear about the maroons is that they were great at camouflage, and they were and they easily camouflage themselves within their environments. But here in this composition, Kojo's figure is not camouflaged. He's not hiding.
He's in front.
He's in front, and you're seeing him clearly. And I interpret that to say that yes, the artist may be saying to us, there's a need to bring him out of the camouflage, out of the bushes, out of the miasma. He needs more visibility. There are things that he had accomplished. There's a role that he played with his community. There are contributions that he has made. He may not be part of the seven, but like Taki, many of us, there's enough evidence to show that he was integral in that fight against oppression, against colonialism, in the fight for freedom. And I particularly like the fact that he is in this parted bush type thing where he is seen. And I think that's an advocacy on the part of the artist, that some of these stories, some of these narratives need to be a little bit more than just, if we're not careful, they'll turn into myth.
Yes.
They'll turn to myth, and people will forget that these were real people, and that documentation is there to support their realness as well as the activities that they...
I think one of the concerns I have about it is usually when indigenous groups are presented, they are either in their ritual or ceremonial clothing, or they're shirtless. The men are shirtless.
Yeah.
Is this a suit he's wearing, like a jacket with a collar, or is it like leaves around the neck? Well, because it looks like a shirt.
It feels like a shirt. It feels like a modern shirt. I'm not able to speak to that specific choice, but I think that is also very interesting. It reminds me of the Paul Bogle
yes,
with the
that's
Paul
why I'm
Bogle
asking.
Portrait, exactly.
And not being able to place or figure if this is his real image, but that also allows it to be that he could be any other man. He could be an ordinary man. So in terms of forgetting Kojo's legacy, to also say that within our men, every man have a legacy and is somebody great, or has done something great that they are not recognized for. Because I'm like, what? A maroon and indigenous person in a shirt, you know, with the color. This looks like a very modern shirt.
Yeah, man.
So as you say, we're not the artists, but we're just academicizing.
Yes.
For the art, right? Our next art, this one is interesting. When I saw it, let me find what's the artist? Amoy Smith.
Yeah.
As we look to the soil. So when I saw this one, I was like, what? Until I read it. I was like, oh, this is nice. And then, of course, you know, in my layman interpretation,
I'm dying to hear.
I'm talking about the red dirt for St. Elizabeth and the whitish one for the marl, just different types of dirt that I know.
Yes.
Loam, clay, marl,
Yes.
gravel, and stuff like that.
Yes.
But when I read the write-up on it, it reminded me of a paper that I wrote about fast fashion.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is very creative. That is why art is so special, you know. You speak in ways that you articulate things differently, and it's open to interpretation. But I'm going to let you talk about it, and then I talk about my paper and why I ended up liking it so much.
So as we return to this, one of the things that jumped out for me, or really resonated with me with this particular work, is that it actually reminded me of when I used to do landscape history as a MA Heritage Studies student.
Okay.
And, you know, oftentimes, you know, the word palimpsest always was like a very frequent word. Palimpsest was essentially the way, a description of how you can look at the evolution or look at the progression of human settling and settlement in a land space. So, for example, an archaeologist
Right, that's
would
what I'm
go
thinking.
on an excavation, and one layer could represent a human community or settlement that had a particular set of activities. When you go down another layer, you see evidence of another time and another
Wow.
community, and maybe similar activities or even different activities. And so as you go down to the soil, literally, you can chart the human history of a location based off what the palimpsest tells you about that location. And that was one of the words that really jumped out for me as I looked at To the Soil We Return. There's also this idea of our presence on earth being inscribed in the very soil that we're on.
Yes.
There are also other interpretations that I think could be considered. For instance, with all of the various advances in technology and socialization and acculturation and all of that, there are more and more people who are looking back to nature, who have a desire to return to nature in some way. This is not a term that I hear used in Jamaica much, but I've heard it, for example, from some of my North American people, in terms of the whole idea of rewilding a space.
Rewilding.
Transforming a space into something that is not so heavily dependent on modern technology or computer technology. Those are not things that Miss Smith, Amoy Smith, has in her artist statement. But the point that I'm trying to make is that I think for a lot of Jamaicans, there are no more questions than ever about what we're doing with our natural environment. And if it is that we have to return to the soil, what are we going to return to it and do?
Right.
There's criticisms, for example, where you will hear people may say that less and less people know how to work the land, know how to make a living from the land. We're depending on subjects and things like that to get jobs and other types of intellectual roles and such. So for me, this is the work, and again, of course, formally speaking, it's an attractive work. There are a variety of fibers similar to Kobe Bailey, where you see she has kind of wefted and weaved a number of different types of items. There are also some shells and nutshells that are in there as well. But the colors and the way how the colors are layered definitely gave me a sense of, yes, I'm looking at layers of history.
Different levels. Yeah. So from the notes that I made, when it reminded me of, because she spoke about returning to the earth as a means of sustainable development. And also from a textile perspective, there is an international day for zero waste.
Yeah.
And what that international day, initiated by the UN, promotes is responsible consumption and waste reduction, and it's speaking towards fashion.
Yeah.
So with this fast fashion that we have, there's a lot of pollution and a lot of waste. And fashion is amounting to, I didn't write the percentage, but a huge percentage of the world's pollution, especially in Africa and then in Jamaica. So when I was doing the article, it was saying every year on March 30th, the world observes this day. But in a 2019 article in Jamaica by Wilson Harris, as a part of the No Dirty Up Jamaica campaign, volunteers found and collected 5,700 articles of clothing, including shoes, along Jamaica's coastline. That was 2019.
Oh, wow.
And the next year, 2020, this increased by 1,450. So with this fast fashion, the clothes are so cheap, but that is one part of it.
Yeah.
It's the material that the clothing is being made from.
Yeah, a lot of them are plastics.
Yeah. And then when they wash and the water gets into, the chemicals from the garment get into the water line and in the coastal areas, they form pollutants. They kill out the fish, they kill off the people, they kill everything. And then in addition to that, now we say, how do we solve this problem? How do we kind of, mediate? I heard recently on the news, Keena Linton George, fashion designer, talking about how she went to a fashion fair overseas. And she got so many orders, so she's a designer. But she could not meet the orders. So she's happy and she's sad because when she came back to Jamaica, professions like dressmakers and tailors and people that would create clothes, which is the way that we would usually do it, people are stepping away from those jobs.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't want to say they're subsistence level jobs, you know, like you would say the farming. We don't have a lot of people looking towards farming. A lot of people don't want to till the soil. A lot of people don't want to return to the earth. We would make clothing from more organic materials and stuff like that. No, we don't have nobody to even make the clothes.
Yeah.
Because you can get it so quickly and the cost
is high.
The cost is high.
The cost is high.
And the more organic, the closer you go to the earth, the more expensive it becomes. Because for you to get cotton, for you to get all of these natural fiber, fabric, it's more expensive.
And also to the dyes, because I mean, you know, on closer inspection of Amoy Smith's work, you may notice that there are these and I mean, forgive me, Amoy, for not knowing every single fiber that's here, but there are some wool, some natural fibers in there, like wool, and some other ones that you see. There's a crocus, right. Some of them plant-based, some of them are animal-based. All of them, or at least a good amount of them, are dyed. And quite likely, I imagine that these are natural dyes that she may have used,
onions.
like onion skin and other plant-based dyes. So in terms of that whole aspect about sustainability, I mean, just the physicality of the work itself, that piece of driftwood at the top that is being used to suspend the whole thing. The entire thing, I think, is a statement on how to create sustainably.
Biodegradable arts.
Exactly. You know? And that's also a very interesting debate within visual arts too. You know, when artists make these things, yes, artists do benefit from connoisseurship in terms of persons buying works and all of that. But a lot of artworks now are being made to degrade, or rather, degradation is a part of the acceptance of the work. And for some people, that makes them not so marketable.
That's not fair. But that is even in commercial products that are not organic, there's manufacturer's obsolescence. They have an expiry date.
Exactly.
So it should be no different with art.
So again, it comes back to what I was saying earlier in terms of, I love the fact that there's so many textile artists in this show, because I think more examples of how to utilize fibers and textiles, not just from a utilitarian perspective, but also to speak on abstract ideas and also to create very interesting imagery. I can tell you right now that this work is one of those that our guards have to work very hard to get people not to touch, because the temptation is very great, because of the amount of textures that you're seeing in there between the shells and the woven pieces and the more fluffier looking elements of the work.
Oh, and let me just give a shout out to Abigail Williams. This is her friend. I remember her texting me about Amoy Smith, that this is her art piece. Hi, Abby. We're going on to the next piece, Mr. Pasley. Yes, this one. Wow. Blood Herald of the Talawa by Victoria Neal. I need to meet Victoria. Victoria is very deep.
She's an amazing person.
I'm telling you.
She was one of the artists who we were able to meet, because we had a press launch just a week before the exhibition opened, and she was the artist who, she was one of the artists who was in attendance. Victoria is self-taught, and Victoria teaches history.
Wow.
So when, I remember her speaking about the work at the launch, and she spoke, one of the statements that she made was that she was inspired when she looked at the theme, One Nation, New Symbols. Her mind was taken to representations of the indigenous. And that in terms of our national understanding of who the indigenous people are, they have almost become myth-like.
Yes.
So she, there was reference made to the coat of arms, where you do have an indigenous man and an indigenous woman on either side of the coat of arms, but really and truly they are so ambiguous in their appearance. It's they are not identifiable images for most Jamaicans. I mean, we see them and we accept it that that's a part of the design of the coat of arms, but we see them as decorations in the coat of arms, not a representation of a people.
Not a representation of us.
Exactly. And so when she did Blood Herald, if you notice, there are a number of elements of the coat of arms that she has actually taken. So for example, the St. George's Cross is one element she has taken. The fact that the work is red. The pineapples that are in the work, and the way how the figure at the bottom of the cross is positioned. It's in a much more, even though they are faceless, I find it to be a much more assertive posture than the very kind of placid looking male and female on the other side. They're centered. And as you go as your eyes move from top to bottom, your face lands on this figure, and then within the figure there are other images now that are associated with our more mountainous regions where a lot of these indigenous groups had settled. For example, places like the Cockpit Country,
and the Jonkra Mountains.
Mountain, right? So there's the imagery of the Jonkra that is there. There's the image of the mountains that's there. And when you think of something that's a herald, some persons may think about the way how heralds, which form the basis of all coat of arms, how heralds were used as a way to let somebody know, or to represent a group that is coming or that is advancing, usually, for example, in a war situation. So her calling this a blood herald, for me, like it felt like an open declaration to say, well, this is us. And we are undeniable in this space and in this place, and there needs to be more to talk about these groups. As I said before, and I think I'm borrowing from something that Victoria had said. If we're not careful, the fact that Jamaica has an indigenous community or has indigenous communities may fall into myth if we continue with representations that don't really represent them.
Yeah, I think it is very powerful in so many ways. The fact that it's the St. George's Cross, the red against the black, and the fact that she said it's a blood herald. Because remember, this is a cross that is used in crusading.
Exactly.
And we know what the crusaders did.
Right.
And they're making a very forceful stand. If this is really representative of our indigenous people, they're on a crusade.
Yeah.
And I think it's time also, in the sense how the Tainos are now pushing for visibility and for prominence, I should say, in the way that the Maroons are identified.
Right.
And also how the Tainos were preserved, as in a bloodline.
Yeah.
Persons now are doing DNA testing.
To find out,
And among Kasi Kalan, he is among the Charlestown Maroons, and whenever they have their events, he have his event as well. Outside of individual events that they may host. Recently, Olive Senior launched her book Paradise Once, which was really about the Tainos in Jamaica. Even though in our days we learned that they were Arawaks, and we heard that they were extinct. This would also be a comment on the Crusaders coming and wiping them out. But they're still here. So this piece taking a stand. But I always have questions.
Yes, ma'am.
So when you look, you see the cross, and we're used to seeing the Christ type figure on the cross.
Yeah.
But this Christ type figure, hands are down, not up, nailed and crucified.
Well,
and it doesn't look Caucasian either.
No, it does
Exactly.
not. And in fact, I don't get. While I understand the crucifix iconography that people would probably quickly think of when they look at this work, I don't get the sense of a crucifixion at all. I don't think this individual is being punished.
Right,
in
because
fact,
the hands are down.
I feel like the way how the composition is almost as if the cross rises up behind them. For me, at least.
Or he's carrying a big cross.
Or carrying a cross.
To make a statement. Because, the cross is on his back and not him on the cross, but the cross on him.
But again, the St. George, as you said, the religious iconography is more aligned with a crucifixion type
and a crusade
narrative. But I agree with you. I definitely get this crusade sense, not a crucifixion, but
Right.
rather a deliberate set of actions aimed at advancing
Right.
the identity, the interests of a particular group of people.
Definitely. Our next piece will be The Choppers. And this one is by Joshua Solas.
Yes.
Tell me about Choppers 2024.
So this is and Joshua, again, you know, if I say anything wrong, don't kill me. So I think the technical term he used for this print on the canvas, because I don't know if the viewers are able to see it, but the canvas has some collage elements on it. But then in ink, you have this printed image of 3 women swinging cutlasses at varying heights. You know, there's one that's very high, one mid-height, and then there's one pointing towards the ground. The technical term, I think, is called a serigraph, which is a type of printmaking or speaks to a printmaking technique. Oh. But Joshua Solas's Choppers has a couple of dimensions to it. For one, he actually is making, in one aspect, he's making reference to another Jamaican artwork. This one by Edna Manley called Diggers, which she did sometime during the night between the 1939 and the 1939. And Diggers has 3 men in that one with pickaxes, and they're all in the rhythm of, I mean, if anybody has ever watched persons use a heavy tool like a pickaxe, it's even a machete too. You establish a rhythm to get your work done. And it's that rhythm that Edna Manley had tried to demonstrate with her portrayal of the Diggers. Now, Joshua Solas's Choppers are also in a rhythm. You see them all in a line. And, you know, for those of you who, you know, who are doing visual arts at CSEC level, you know, rhythm has a pattern. And there's this pattern of 3 women, each of them. And you can follow the machete in either direction, from up, down, or down, up. So you do get a sense of rhythm. Now, one of the other things that is interesting about Joshua's work is that in his artist statement, he didn't specify what them chopping. He didn't say if they were chopping bush, cane,
the
line, you know. And in our contemporary Jamaican culture now, there's a way that we immediately think of, where we don't say choppers, we say choppers.
Chopper.
And, you know, there are associations that we make of that in terms of somebody who is involved in scamming and fraud and all of that stuff. But this is one of those artworks where the artist has left a lot up to the imagination, to the viewer. So any direction you want, take it. You know, if you want to focus on the fact that it's women with machetes, you know, it may be a statement on women laborers. It may be a statement on chopping the line because they're in a line.
They are in a line.
There's the ambiguity of the subject. And if you notice, there's nothing else. There's barely anything else in the composition. It's just this very bright red color highlighting this group of women. It's open to the interpretation in terms of what kind of chopping you think is happening in this work.
But for Edna Manley's 1939 piece, the diggers were being used to symbolize some kind of digging towards freedom, some kind of nationalism.
So going into Edna Manley just a little bit. Edna Manley, one of her major, or one of the major archetypes, and by archetype we're talking about a character representation that is embodying particular values and attitudes, like a superhero, you know, or even a villain, but even our national heroes. They are examples of archetypes. So for Edna Manley, one archetype was a laborer.
Yes.
Yeah. And the laborer as being kind of the engine of the society, engine of the economy. Yes, you have the persons of maybe, you know, higher status quo who control the means of production, but they can't do anything without a labor class.
Yes.
And again, if we go back into the history of labor movements in Jamaica and the involvement of her husband Norman Washington Manley, Alexander Bustamante, even Marcus Garvey too, there's a lot of emphasis on empowering the labor class. And so a lot of Edna Manley's artworks featured various kinds of laborers. The diggers, who at that time you'd more associate either working on field or maybe working in road construction, or some sort of construction, being another integral group of people that integral towards the development of the country, towards the modernization of the country. So it's interesting. It would be interesting for me, at least, to consider that and Joshua Solas's choppers. Are we looking at individuals that are integral to the development of the country? Or
towards what development? Because it says, what are you chopping?
Exactly. And again, what development? Because he doesn't indicate in the artwork what is being chopped.
And the fact that the bodies change from males to females is also a commentary on the workforce. If the labor force has changed from predominantly male to predominantly female, who is it now that is the labor force? Who is driving the society? And who is, I don't want to say breadwinner, but really who is bringing
in the bread?
It's down to economics. So again, with what this generation is seeing and what they're identifying with, the female is really out there in the world of work more than the males. So to put the females here with the machetes, juxtapose the males with the pickaxe. But it also says easier work, lighter work, because the pickaxe is a heavier thing, tougher style. But nonetheless, the roles have evolved. I don't want to say replace or change, but have evolved. I would buy this piece. This is a very interesting piece.
I think Joshua would love to hear that.
This is a very interesting piece. I could write a paper on it. I may just.
I endorse.
And we're moving on. I think we'll probably have about 3 or 2 more. This is our final one.
Yeah, that was it.
I thought we were going to do the one with the building and the bodies protruding out of the building.
We can do it for another episode.
You hear that? We may have another episode. All right, so it was a very interesting conversation about New Nation, New Symbols, and what my producer is saying 1 minute, and how Jamaicans see themselves. One Nation, New Symbols. What did I say?
You said the right thing.
I said the right thing.
Yes,
One Nation, New Symbols. So please come and check out this exhibition at the National Gallery of Jamaica. We are at
12 Ocean Boulevard.
Right.
Our phone number is 876-920-1661. I also want to mention too that the exhibition comes with 2 publications that you can find at the gift shop. We have this one, which is a booklet.
Right.
And we also have the full page catalog. And the catalog has the judges' report because it's an open call. So, of course, the judges also have their statements as to how the selection was made and what were key highlights for them. The curatorial essay.
Isn't there a viewer's choice award, like a favorite pick?
Yes, there is.
So, explain that.
All right. So we announced at the exhibition launch on September 28th that Haagen-Dazs, the ice cream. So for those of you who were there, you probably got a sample of the Haagen-Dazs ice cream. But in addition to giving out samples, they also have confirmed that they will be donating $200,000 to the winner of the One Nation New Symbols Viewers' Choice Award. So we're going to launch that next year. So that means that we're going to launch in January. Of course, if you follow us on all our socials, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X, we will have those updates ready. We will also, do our press releases and whatnot. But we are aiming to launch in January. And so from January up until the deadline to be announced, you need to come down to the gallery, you need to visit this exhibition, you need to look for your favorite artwork or artist, depending on which direction you want to take it, and vote.
Yes.
To ensure that your favorite artist has the best chance possible of getting 200,000 Jamaican dollars. And this is something that we had never been able to do before with the open call. We've done it with other exhibitions, for example, the National Biennial. And, you know, we're really happy to be able to kind of bring that back as a part. So again, you know, I'm inviting all your viewers to just stay tuned to us and you'll get those details. But definitely we'll be launching in January.
Okay, do we have time to take questions online? Do we have questions? One question. From the producer is working that up. So coming up for the Institute of Jamaica on October 31st, we have our Heritage Jamboree, rebranded from Heritage Fest, where we will be celebrated at all 7 divisions of the Institute of Jamaica, our heritage and our culture. I think this year is the theme is wheel and turn, wheel and turn, and they'll be focusing on dance. So come out at all the divisions and get to wheel and turn.
Yes, and if you'd permit me, I'd also want to add that there is another event that the National Gallery is going to be launching on October 18th on a Saturday. We're going to have our first panel discussion for the One Nation New Symbols exhibition.
Great.
We'll be featuring Katrina Coombs and Christopher Harris, who are 2 artists in the show.
Exhibition.
Katrina is another fiber artist and Christopher is also a self-taught artist too. So we will also be announcing that on our socials, but I just want to say October 18th down at the National Gallery, 12 Ocean Boulevard.
And tell us your socials so they can go.
So you can find us National Gallery of Jamaica on Facebook, Instagram, X. We also have a YouTube channel and we also have a TikTok. We also have a TikTok account as well, so you can look out for us there. We're totally open to, we'd love you to subscribe, but please like and share our content. We really appreciate it. And of course, subscribe so you can get notifications.
Yes. So we're going to take our question now. So the question we have is from Gordon Productions. Ask when it's time, how do the artworks in the exhibition reinterpret or challenge traditional Jamaican symbols? So the question is, how do the artwork in the exhibition reinterpret or challenge traditional symbols?
So they've done that in different ways. So, we only looked at 6 today, but there are over 50 works in the exhibition. One of the ways that they do that is by reinterpreting symbols that we already know, but reinterpreting them in a way that may not necessarily, reinterpreting them to have new meanings to what we normally associate with them. So for example, the Victoria Neil's Blood Herald of the Jamaican Talawa, all of the image elements of that work were taken from the coat of arms.
The coat of arms.
What she has done is that she has reorganized those elements and represented a new composition with all these symbols. So that's one way that artists within the show have done that. Another way is in terms of bringing in new symbols for consideration. So you made reference to one work in the show. I think it's the one by Kyle Gooden, Buildings of Work, where he looked at the great houses and the aqueducts and the windmill structures. Some of them you can still see in different parts of Jamaica. But he represented them as new symbols for consideration. Why? Because a part of his concept is that when you see these structures, for example, those of us who go up to UA regular and see the aqueduct, oftentimes it is forgotten that these were made by slave hands. Again, those of us who study history and are enthusiasts of history are familiar with this. But in terms of popular knowledge, how many people really appreciate that it was slaves that built this. They weren't just chopping cane and chopping banana. They were also building these structures. So they were the construction workers of their day.
They became a part of the constructions in the way that the artwork has the body as a part of the building.
Yes.
And even up to 2 years ago, 2023, when I was on campus, and they found remains of the enslaved on the Mona estate, and they built something in memory of it. Sometimes we forget that, you know, it's not a story. It's real life and real people.
Another example, you know, to answer the question that was asked in terms of how are the artists challenging. There's an artwork in the exhibition by Andy Jefferson that utilizes the Jamaican flag. And whenever we as Jamaicans, we see the flag, we have been socialized, rightly so, to treat the flag or have meanings with the flag that are celebratory of us and celebratory of our pride and our achievements. We do all sorts of things with the flag. We like to wear it, do fashion with it, you know. When World Championships come on, everybody wants something in black, green, and gold. But in that artwork by Andy Jefferson, he has juxtaposed some not so celebratory things. For example, a knife, a lighter, which some people would think of, you know, smoking weed or so as a part of it. There are a number of found objects that he has embedded within that image of the flag that don't necessarily give that same celebratory meaning.
That's one of the domino on the thing on it.
Right, that has the dominoes in it.
Beach.
Unfortunately, we don't have an image of that there. But, you know, to juxtapose the flag with things that are not celebratory is also a type of challenge too. So I would invite, again, please come and check these, you know.
I have another comment question here from Miss Williams. She got the big ups. Did the title of this exhibition factor ongoing discussions about the Republic of Jamaica Jamaica transitioning to a republic? And will it require new symbols as a way to create the new nation, Republic of Jamaica?
Who is this person that asked you this?
Abigail Williams.
Abigail Williams, big up Abigail. Abigail asked, yes, a resounding yes. That was a very big part of the discussion that we had, because we've been monitoring the discourse around Jamaica transitioning from a constitutional monarchy to a republic for quite some time. And as we were thinking about this exhibition concept, we thought to ourselves, would there be any changes? Would there be new symbols? So yes, that's definitely something that we talked about as we conceptualized the show.
Okay. Well, I don't have any more questions, producer. So we want to thank Miss Barnett Davidson for sharing with us today. I always enjoy speaking with Monique. I know this is your second time.
Yes.
I know the girl will be having more exhibitions, so there may be a third time.
Wow, you guys flatter me. But I mean, my team and I will really appreciate the work that you guys are doing and the opportunity you give us to talk about curating culture, because that's what we do.
Yes. And big up to your team, because I walked with the installation and it was massive. Guys, you have to come and check out this exhibition. They have some installations that are just out of this world. And please come again. November 2nd is our next show, the first Thursday in November. I know this show was a little delayed, but come again for our 19th series of Curating Culture on November 2nd. We'll be having Dr. Lisa Tomlinson, and we'll be continuing the discussion around culture. We'll be speaking about her book, Una Marcin. It's November 6th. But looking forward to see you, and thank you for being with us, everyone. Have a good afternoon.